Hey, what's going on, guys? So I've talked about the Netlify hosting platform in a couple of videos. I've done some tutorials when it comes to deployment and contact form submission. We even use them in my latest HTML and CSS course on Udemy. And I support the platform because they give you a lot for free, and it's very practical and easy to deploy. DevOps deployment, that stuff can be a huge headache, especially for beginners, and they just make things so easy. Now, they just released this Netlify Dev, which is integrated into the CLI, and it allows you to, like it says here, run the entire platform on your laptop. So right from your laptop, you can run a dev server, and you have access to lambda functions, environment variables, site generation, edge logic, basically all the stuff that they offer on their platform. You can just now have right on your local machine. And not only that, but you can run the -- live flag, and your dev server will now be remote, where you can share a URL with your coworkers or anybody you want, where you want them to view the app that's on your dev server. So it's fantastic for working with teams and stuff like that. So we're just going to jump in and kind of experiment with it a little bit. If you're going to follow along, you do need a Netlify account, which is absolutely free to create. So if you sign up, you log in, you'll see a dashboard like this where you'll have your sites, and I've cleared everything out for this tutorial. So let's go ahead and jump into VS Code. And I just have an empty folder called Netlify Demo. And in my integrated terminal, I'm going to go ahead and install the Netlify CLI globally. So I'm going to do sudo npm install -g Netlify -CLI. So we should be able to use the CLI from anywhere on our machine. And let's clear this up, and we'll run Netlify --help, and that will give you all the different commands you can use. So we can run the dev server, we can deploy in a single command, we can scaffold functions, and do a whole bunch of other stuff. So over here, I'm going to create a config file called netlify.toml, or TOML. And in here, we need to specify a build folder. So we're going to say build inside brackets, and then we're going to publish equals, and I'm going to call my build folder dist. So I'm going to save that. And I'm just doing just a standard HTML JavaScript, but if you're using React or Vue or something like that, it's the same thing. You'll just have a build folder. Like for instance, in React, it's actually called build. So you would add that. And what's cool is the dev server actually detects if it's a React app or if it's a Gatsby app, and it will run it correctly just by running Netlify Dev instead of having to do npm run npm start or whatever. All right, so let's create that dist folder. And inside there, I'm going to create an index.html. And let's just generate a boilerplate. And let's see, we'll just change this to hello world. And for now, I'm just going to put an H1 that says hello world. So save that. And now what I'm going to do is run netlify init. And that's going to create a site ID for us. It's going to ask if we want to connect to a GitHub repository, which I don't have one, so I'm going to choose this manual option. And it's going to ask for a site name. I'm just going to say hello and a bunch of numbers. This has to be unique. If someone else has it, it'll ask you to rename it. And then I'm going to choose my team, which is the only one I have. And then you can see it generated this site ID. Gives us the admin URL. Also, if we look up here, there's a file called state.json that has the site ID. Now, the admin URL, if I go back to my dashboard here in Netlify and reload, we're going to see the site. Now, it's not deployed. You can see site has not been deployed yet, but we can simply run netlify deploy, and that's it. So very easy to deploy, which is one of the things I love. But let's clear this up, and let's go ahead and run Netlify Dev. We'll deploy it later on. So this will run it on port 8888 by default, and we can open that up. And that's what we'll be using, but I just want to show you that we can also run this with --live. And what this will do is it'll actually give us a remote URL that anyone could access. So anyone could go to this right now and see what I have running. So this is great for when you're working with a team remotely, or for clients. If you're a freelancer, you're creating a website or application and they want to see what you have so far, without having to actually deploy, you can just run the dev server, show them, they can take a look, and then you can just stop it. So if I go back and stop the server, it will no longer work. All right, so really, really cool. But I'm just going to run Netlify Dev. Okay, so next thing I want to talk about and look at is redirects and proxies. So in my dist folder, I'm going to create a file called _redirects. And you can do like simple redirects. So let's say I wanted /brad to go to https traversymedia.com. If I wanted to do that, now if I go to /brad, it'll take me there in Traversy Media. All right, so you can do simple redirects like that, but what I want to show you is how we can add a proxy for an external API. And the API I'm going to use is, JSON placeholder .typecode.com, which is a fake REST API. You can see there's a bunch of resources or endpoints we can hit to get things like users. So we get this JSON data of all these users. So I want to be able to go to our localhost /API/users and get this data, so that we can make requests to that without having to go through this domain, which, you know, it helps with cores and stuff like that. So I'm going to just copy this root domain right here and go to my redirects file, and I'm going to just say /API/*, meaning API/anything. I want to proxy this JSON placeholder, and then I want to do /:splat, which will just match anything that we put in there. And then we want it to be a 200 response. So let's save that. And now if I go to my local host /API/users, I get the data. Okay, so if I could do posts. So anything that API offers, I can now get with my own domain. Okay, so we can add a proxy really easily. And I'm going to make a request to this later on through our JavaScript. So the next thing I want to look at is functions. Okay, so we can create server functions or lambda functions really easily. I'm actually going to stop the server. And before I do anything here, I'm going to go back to my Netlify toml file. And we just need to specify a folder for our functions, which I'm going to call functions. Okay, so I'll save that. And then down here, we can run Netlify functions. Is it functions or function? I think it's functions. Yeah. So Netlify functions :create, and I'm going to call this get word. Okay, so that's going to be the name of my function. Now I have these options. I can do like GraphQL with Apollo server, Fauna if you want to use FaunaDB, but I want just a basic boilerplate. So I'm going to choose this hello world option. All right, now if I look under the functions folder that it created, we have a get word folder and a get word JS. And this is just a standard lambda function. It has a handler. So the function just returns a promise with the text of hello world. And then in the handler, we're going to put that in a variable called body and then just return a status code of 200 and the body. And if there's an error, it will return a 500 error. So very, very simple. I do have a video on lambda functions with Netlify, but some things have changed since then. We don't have to compile them anymore and stuff with this whole Netlify Dev. They're just available to us, so that's nice. But what I want to do now is let's actually run the server. So I'm going to do Netlify Dev. And I want to show you that we can actually access this now through our server, okay, right in the browser. So I can go to /.netlify. You can see I've already done this. So I can go to .netlify functions get word JS, and it shows hello world. Okay, and that's what comes from the JavaScript. And later on, what I want to do is make a request to this function, but I don't want to have to do it, to this this URL. So I'm going to just copy this right here, go to my redirects, and I want /getWord to redirect to my function. I'm actually going to put a slash at the beginning here. All right, and then we just want to add a 200. So I'll save that, and now if I go to just /getWord, we get hello world. All right, so we can make a request to this URL now, or this endpoint. So I don't want this to return hello world. I want to just give you a simple example of something we could do server side. So I'm actually going to install something with npm called random words that does just that. It just generates random words. So I'm going to stop the server and do an npm init. I should have did -y. I'm just going to enter through these. All right, so now let's go ahead and install npm install random -words. Okay, so now in our functions file, get word, we can actually bring this in. So we want to bring in random -words, and I'm just going to change the name of the function from hello to get word. That makes a little more sense. And then we need to change it down here as well. Okay, and then instead of resolving just hello world, I'm going to replace this with random words, and I'm going to make it uppercase. I'm going to do two. Whoops, let's do 2 uppercase. All right, so I'll save this, and let's run our server. So Netlify Dev, and then if I go back to /getWord and reload, I get a random word in all uppercase. All right, now this is just the JavaScript file, so I want to actually bring this into my HTML. So I'm going to go into my HTML here, and let's replace this. We'll say random word, and then I'm going to put a span with an ID of random -word. All right, and then we're going to have a main.js, so I'm going to link that. So we'll say script source js/main.js and save. So we'll go ahead and create that. So in dist, we'll create JS, and in JS, we'll create main.js. All right, so let's create a function here. I'm going to call it getWord, and it's going to be a sync because I'm going to be using the fetch API with a sync await. So we'll go ahead and const res. We want to get a response, so we want to say await, use the fetch API, and we want to make a request to just /getWords. Okay, and then since we're using fetch, we have to do this again. We have to get the actual data. So we have to do await again, and then res.text, because we're just getting plain text. Okay, and then I don't know what this red line is. Oh, all right, never mind. But this function, I don't know why it's giving me this, because there's nothing wrong with this. But I don't know. I'm just going to ignore that. If you guys know why that's doing that, you can let me know. So what we want to do now is insert that word that we fetch. So let's do document.get element by ID. We have an ID of random-word, and let's do inner text equals that word. Okay, and then we just need to call the function, so we'll say getWord and save. So now let's go back to our root. Okay, we're getting not found. Fetch get, oh, I said words, it's get word. And there we go. So now we're fetching a word, and we're using that server function to be able to do that using an npm module. Okay, so it's something very simple, but I mean, you could do anything. You can install anything with npm, and you could use that functionality and just put it inside of a function. All right. I'm actually going to add a style sheet to my little app here. So I'm going to create a CSS folder, and then let's put a style.css file in here, and I just have just a couple things to put in here. So just the body, h1, random word class, and then ul, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull those users from the JSON placeholder and put them in an unordered list. So if I save this and go to my index.html, just go ahead and bring this in. So CSS style, and if I go back and reload, it just looks like that. Actually, that should be yellow though. Random word, did I not call it that? Oh, class random word, and it's an ID, so there we go. All right, so we get this little random word generator. So now what I'm going to do is make a request to JSON placeholder, but I'm going to do it through the proxy that we added. So in our JavaScript main.js, let's create another function. So we'll say const get users, and we want to do async. Let's do const res equals await fetch, and we want to fetch from just /API/users because we can, because we created that proxy, and then we'll get the users. Let's say await res.json, since it's JSON data, and then what I'm going to do is take the users we get and loop through them with a for each. So for each user, I'm going to create a list item with document dot create element, and we want to create a list item, an li, and then we need a text node to go into that list item. So we want to do document dot create text node, and that text node, I'm just going to take the user name of the current iteration. All right, and then we'll take the list item and we'll append child. So we want to basically put into it the text, and then we're going to take from the DOM, let's do get element by ID. We'll have a user's ID, and we're going to just append child to that, the li. All right, so for each user, it's going to create an li with the username. So let's run that down here, get users, and save, and then inside our index.html, let's go right under here. Let's do an h2. We'll say users, and then just a ul with an ID of users. All right, so we'll save that, and let's go back and reload. And there we go. So we're now getting those users, and we're doing it through that proxy. Okay, so hopefully you can see the benefit of using this whole workflow, this whole I guess dev environment. So if we want to deploy this, if we're ready to deploy, we can cut this out, Control C, and we can simply do Netlify deploy. Now if we just do deploy, it'll create what's called a draft. It won't actually be deployed. In order for it to be into production, you want to do -- prod. Okay, so now we have our URL right here, and if we go to it, there we go. So this is now live on the internet, and if I go to my dashboard here and reload, you'll see that we are deployed, and the next step would be to set up a custom domain. I do have a video. If you just search Traversy Media Netlify deploy, I have a video where we do actually create a domain and all that stuff. Also, you can secure with HTTPS. All right, they'll do that for you with Let's Encrypt. So it's just a fantastic platform. It really is. It's very practical, and I can't say enough good things about it. So that's pretty much what I wanted to go over. Just to show you real quick, if you want to do like React, what I'll do is let's see. Yeah, we'll just get out of this. And I'm gonna just create a folder here, and I'll call this let's just call this I don't know, React test. And then I'll go ahead and open this with VS Code. Okay, and then let's open up the terminal here and just do a npx create react app in the current folder. So this will just generate a boilerplate application. And what we're going to want to do is create, just like we did before, we want to create a netlify.toml file, and we want to specify the build folder, which for React is actually called build. All right, so let's do netlify.toml, and we'll say build, and then publish equals build. All right, let's go down here and let's do a Netlify init. Site name, we'll just say React and some numbers. All right, so we've done that. Now I'm going to run npm run build to build out our static assets here, create a production build. Oh, I actually wanted to show you the dev server first. So I could do Netlify Dev from here, and it will automatically know that it's a React app. You can see right here, see how it said React scripts? I can't go back up, but it basically just did the same thing that it does when you run, you know, npm start. So if we go to our, if we go to localhost 3000, we have our React app running. And we can also run it with the live flag as well if we want it to run, if we want a remote URL. So what I'm going to do now is clear that out, and I want to deploy this. So I've already initialized a site. In fact, if I go to my dashboard in Netlify, you can see right here. So I actually want to deploy it because it hasn't been deployed yet. So we'll run Netlify deploy, and let's do --prod. Okay, so what it's going to deploy, you can see right here, the build. And if we go back here and reload, we have our URL. Let's hit it, and there we go. So we now have a React app live on the web. And of course, you go back and add a domain, all that stuff. There's also stuff like form submissions. There's identity, which has to do with authentication. So this platform has a lot to offer. All right, so I think that's it, guys. I just wanted to kind of experiment with this a little bit, show you how some of this works. But yeah, that's it. So if you like this, please leave a like, and I will see you in the next video.